welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking a look at a source that's a little different for us.
Yeah, it's a collection of Greek recipes by Angeliki Koulouri.
Exactly. And right from the start, she makes it really clear this is, well, much more than just a set of instructions.
She talks about them being stories, full of memories, aromas, flavors, a real link to tradition.
It really does stand out, that framing. It feels like she's preserving something personal.
Almost, yeah, like a culinary heritage.
So our mission here is to sort of unpack what makes her approach to Greek and Mediterranean cooking feel unique, at least according to her.
And maybe pull out some of those specific, really fascinating details from the recipes themselves.
Right. See how the philosophy translates into practice? It's like trying to get at the heart and soul she pours into these dishes. So let's explore this together.
Okay, so let's start with that philosophy then. She kicks things off saying these recipes are, and I'm quoting loosely here, stories full of memories, aromas, and flavors that preserve the authenticity.
And heart of Greek and Mediterranean cuisine. That phrase, preserve the authenticity, that really jumped out at me too.
Yeah, it suggests these aren't, just modern riffs. It feels like an attempt to capture something traditional, something specific.
And she connects it straight back to family, doesn't she? Learning from grandmothers.
She talks about exactly that, how these recipes bring back childhood, that feeling of grandmothers filling the kitchen with warmth and love. It's quite evocative.
It really elevates the whole act of cooking, framing it like that. It's not just about sustenance.
No, not at all. She calls it a celebration of the senses and tradition, even an art, an expression of love.
An art. Wow. Food not just as a need, but as a true delight for the soul. That's powerful stuff.
It really underscores the emotional weight she attaches to these dishes.
And she's careful to point out these aren't just ideas she dreamt up.
Right. She stresses they've been tested and perfected over the years.
So it's positioned as kind of a gift, almost.
Yeah.
A sharing of something reliable and authentic, carrying history.
Exactly. A gift for people who want that taste of history and memory.
And she even makes that promise, doesn't she?
Yeah.
That the book will inspire even those who say they don't know how to cook.
Which is bold. It implies there's an accessibility baked in, despite the deep roots.
Okay, so looking at the contents, you get a feel for the scope.
Pies, doughs, tarts, legumes, vegetables, meat, seafood. Pretty comprehensive categories.
It covers a lot of ground.
Yeah.
And just the names listed under those headings.
Yeah, you see things like sofrito from Corfu, gyro stoner, Koulouri Thessalonicus.
Right, so specific regional things alongside the big hitters. And lots of different pies, seafood. It paints a picture of traditional Greek home cooking.
A really broad picture, actually.
Okay, here's where I think it gets really interesting when we dive into the actual recipe details she provides. The ingredients, the steps.
Yeah, this is where that tested and perfected idea starts to feel more concrete.
Let's start with the pie section. Seems like a big focus for her.
It definitely is. And even just within cheese pies, there's so much variation. Well, there's a pleated cheese pie tyroplise. She mentions folding the phyllo dough like a fan.
Phyllo, that really thin pastry dough, right?
Exactly. So that, like a fan description, it's simple, but it hints at a very specific visual outcome, a specific texture.
Interesting. Then there's an open cheese pie.
Yeah, described just as moist and crispy around. Simple, but you can almost taste it.
Okay, but the rustic cheese pie, the village one, this sounds like where she really gets into the details, especially the dough.
Oh, absolutely. She lays out this whole process. You divide the dough, roll out portions, layer them on a plate with melted butter between each layer.
Okay.
And then you chill the whole stack before rolling it out finally.
Right, that sounds like a lamination technique almost, like for puff pastry.
Kind of. She says it creates a unique result, multiple layers, and an incredibly crispy crust.
And she calls the dough itself absolutely amazing and easy to work with, even after all that.
Yeah, which is quite the endorsement after describing those steps. It suggests the process, while detailed, yields a really manageable dough.
That layering and chilling.
Yeah.
Trapping the butter. Yeah, you can see how that would make it flaky and crisp when it bakes. Makes sense.
Exactly. And then there's another one, a cheese pie using contaifi pastry.
Contaifi. That's the shredded phyllo, right? Looks like vermicelli.
That's the one. And this recipe uses a mix of cheeses, rigatto, blue cheese, and feta.
Ooh, okay. Rigatto's hard, salty, blue cheese is tangy, feta is briny. That's a complex mix.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
And she gives a specific baking instruction cover it with foil for the first 20 minutes.
Ah, okay. That usually stops the top from getting too brown before the inside cooks through.
Right, another little sign of a well-tested method, someone who knows the pitfalls.
So moving on, there's this oriental pie, a pastrma pie.
Yeah, pastrma being that very flavorful, cured, spiced, air-dried meat, usually beef or lamb.
And the recipe sounds pretty simple otherwise.
Yeah.
Puff pastry, cheese, tomato.
But the key tip she gives is about the spice coating on the semen.
What about it?
She says to remove it. And that you don't need extra seasoning because, quote, all the flavor is provided by the pastrma.
That's a fantastic practical tip. That coating can be really strong.
It really can. So removing it probably helps balance everything. And then she adds that little personal touch.
Drink pairing.
Yeah. A cold glass of beer goes wonderfully with it. It's not just an instruction, it's a whole vibe suggestion.
I like that. Okay, what else? There's an Epirus spinach pie.
Yes. And the interesting thing here is the batter includes cornmeal and yogurt.
In the batter itself, not just the filling.
Right. Alongside the usual spinach, leeks, spring onions, dill, spearmint, feta filling.
Huh. Cornmeal. That would give it a different texture, maybe a bit more rustic. And yogurt for moisture and tang.
Seems likely. It's a definite regional variation, probably.
And she even lists mini croissant bites under pies.
Yeah, gives the dough ingredients yeast, milk, oil, eggs, and suggests filling them with feta or little sausages, so a versatile base dough.
Okay, let's shift to the doughs and bread section. The beer-flavored bread. That definitely catches the eye.
It does. The key ingredient is, beer, just with self-raising flour.
Simple.
Very. She notes it has a short rest time and gives a tip for handling sticky dough. Oil your hands.
Practical. And the beer probably adds flavor and helps with the rise from the carbonation.
I guess so. She says it's versatile too. You can add olives, feta, sun-dried tomatoes, and promises a crispy crust.
Nice. Then the sesame bread ring Culinary Thessalonicus. That's a classic.
Totally iconic. And she details the process, including dipping the dough rings in sugar water before coating them generously in sesame seeds.
Ah, the sugar water dip. I've heard about that. That must be what helps all those seeds stick and gives it that slightly shiny, crisp crust.
Exactly. It's one of those little steps that defines the real thing, isn't it?
It really is. It's those details.
And finally, she has all-purpose bread rolls. Lists the ingredients yeast, milk, sugar, 2 kinds of flour, margarine, eggs. Standard enriched dough, sounds like.
But she adds a really useful tip, right? About freezing.
Yeah. Once they're cool, pop them in freezer bags, freeze them. She says when you thaw them, they taste like they were freshly made.
That's a brilliant piece of practical advice for anyone who likes baking bread.
Absolutely. So when you look at all these specifics together, the layering for the rustic pie, the beer in the bread, the cantaifi, the sugar water dip for the coulerie, covering the pie with foil.
And the tips, like removing the semen or the freezing suggestion.
It all starts to really back up that claim she makes at the start about the recipes being tested and perfected.
It really does. These aren't vague instructions. They're precise techniques and observations.
You get the sense she's worked through these issues, figured out what makes them work best. It feels like she's sharing the nuances, the kind of knowledge passed down.
Those tips especially feel like she's right there guiding you. Do this. Trust me, it works.
Exactly. It makes the whole idea of tackling traditional recipes, which can sometimes feel a bit daunting,
Yeah, definitely.
feel much more achievable. It feels like she genuinely wants people to succeed and get those authentic results. Lives up to that promise to inspire even non-cooks.
It positions the recipes as a kind of bridge, doesn't it?
A bridge from the past, from those memories and traditions, to someone today wanting to taste that.
Right. So thinking about what this all means for you, the listener, what's the takeaway here?
Well, I think this deep dive really shows how that deep connection to tradition, to memory, gets embedded in very specific practical recipes.
They're not just abstract ideas, they're techniques, ingredient choices.
And we've seen concrete examples of things that feel characteristically Greek or Mediterranean, at least in this collection. The sheer variety of pies, the different dough methods, the specific uses of feta and other traditional ingredients.
And maybe most importantly, it shows how practical, tested advice those little tips and tricks are built right into the recipes themselves.
Which makes it all feel much more approachable, like the author really intended.
Yeah. It gives you a window into this culinary world where food is clearly carrying so much more than just calories. It's history, emotion, shared experience.
Delight for the soul, as she put it.
Right. So just to recap briefly, we looked at this Greek recipe source where cooking is deeply tied to tradition and memory. The recipes are presented as this carefully tested personal gift.
And we saw examples of the variety, those specific techniques that create distinct results, and the practical tips that make them doable.
Okay, so here's a final thought for you to mull over. We saw how certain ingredients, like feta, pop up again and again, or how specific methods, like that sugar water dip for the kaluri, are crucial. How do those kinds of specific, repeated elements, ingredients, or techniques become the things that actually carry the identity and history of a whole cuisine across generations? And maybe think about a traditional dish that you love. What's the specific ingredient or the particular step in making it that holds the most history or meaning for you?